Hello peoples and popples, and welcome back to my channel. I'm Fiction&Flora, you can call me Flora, and today I will be sharing with you 22 translated works from 11 different countries that you can possibly read in 2021. I would like to preface this by saying this is not the only translated works I found. These are just the ones I'm currently interested in reading. I do encourage you to always read outside of your country, in your language. And I know for a lot of our international readers, they have to, they don't have any other choice. But if you do have the choice and the privilege to have works written in your language and readily available to you at all the time, I encourage you to read outside your region, country, language as much as possible. And by language, I just mean that read something that's translated. I assume you got that, but just in case. So today I will be sharing these with you. I will let you also know ahead of time that one, a lot of these are going to be Japanese translated fiction because I have already told you I fell into a hole. The next thing to keep in mind is that while I have practiced pronouncing most of these names, I say most of, every name except for the English ones. I have practiced saying these names. One, for a lot of languages, tonality matters, and I'm not good at tone. I've been told that my voice is pretty fucking flat a lot of the time. I'm so sorry. So tonality matters, and also, I'm probably gonna trip over my words. I stutter sometimes. I'm gonna trip over them. I apologize. But I'm going to do my best to make sure I am pronouncing these correctly, and if that's not correctly, I'm going to put in the effort to at least get them as close as I possibly can. We're gonna try. So without further ado, we're just gonna go ahead and jump into it. Like I said, these are from 11 different countries. So to give you all the information, I will make sure to let you know what country they are from, and I will read the synopsis for you. The reason I'm going by country and not language is because not all people who speak the same language are from the same area. Anyway, without further ado, let's hop into it. The first one on my list, and the oldest one on my list, and ironically one I was recently recommended, is Battle Royale by Koshin Takami, and translated by Yuji Oniki, and the person who recommended it to me was Luxurious Blue here on YouTube and on Twitter. I'll link them below. And this follows a group of students who are sent to an island to be in a government-sanctioned death match. And if this sounds familiar to you, it's because one, it's been around for a while, but two, when Hunger Games started getting big, many people compared the two. They do have quite a few similarities, but the point is different, I assume. But either way. So just to give you a little bit more in-depth of a synopsis, it follows this one class that is going in, and it's in a dystopian future on our world where Japan now sanctions these death matches for delinquent students. And we follow I'm basing this on the movie. I don't know about the book because I haven't read it yet. But in the movie, you follow two main students and then you like jump into other ones. But you follow the students as one, they deal with the fact that they are stuck in this fucking death match, and two, as they have to deal with the trauma that comes with being forced to murder people you've spent years knowing. One of the interesting things about this one, though, is that they have red zones that if you're in it, you're automatically killed. So students have to keep moving. They aren't allowed to like settle down and hide or anything. You have to move. The thing is that they're really on their own. So like they get supplies, but those supplies may or may not be useless, but like they're legitimately, because again, like I said, it was compared to like Hunger Games, but like they don't have sponsors, they don't have a coach, they don't have time, they didn't know they were coming here. They thought they were going on a class trip, and they woke, and then once they got to their location, they found out, no, there is no class trip. The class is a trip. You are dead. So I'm just saying, I'm excited to read it. It is a thick one. She thick. She thick. That's okay. We're excited. We're gonna try it out. I think I'm gonna try and get to that next month. Maybe if I'm ambitious, I'll start it this month. But like, the next one on my list is We the Children of Cats by Tomoyuki Hoshino, and translated by Brian Bergstrom. This was not recommended by anyone. By the way, I'm going through the Japanese list right now. So sorry, I forgot to mention that ahead of time, right after I told you I'd tell you. Hi, I'm Flora. I'm very forgetful. I'll read you the synopsis now because Battle Royale actually is one of the only ones that I know the synopsis of by heart. So we've got my list in my phone. um, By turns teasing and terrifying, laconic and luminous, the stories in this anthology are drawn from sources as diverse as Borges, Nabokov, Garcia Marquez, and traditional Japanese folklore, and yet they ultimately reside in a slightly subversive literary world that is all their own, blending an uncompromising ethical vision with exuberant freewheeling imagery, and balancing formal experimentation. The 5 short stories and 3 novellas included in We the Children of Cats shows the range and force of Hoshino's imagination. The stories include a man and a woman who find their genders and sexualities brought radically into question when their bodies sprout new parts, a man who travels from Japan to Latin America in search of a revolutionary purpose only to find much more than he bargained for, a journalist who investigates a poisoning at an elementary school and gets lost in an underworld of buried crimes and secret societies, and haunted forests, and 2 young travelers exiled from Japan who find a new beginning in resistance fighters in Peru. An afterword by translator and editor Brian Bergstrom, and a new preface by Hoshino himself is also included. So it's an anthology. I'm excited. It seems like it's got those fantastical elements that I seem to enjoy thus far, and I'm ready to read it. And the next one on my list is Death Sentences. This is written by Chiaki Kawamata and translated by Thomas Lemaire and Kazuko Y. Behrens. I guess it's technically historical now, even though it's not been that long. I guess it has been that long. Wow. This is a historical now. I think it was contemporary at the time it was written, though. It's in 1980s Japan. A special police squad is tracking down one of the afflicted, oh, we need air quotes, afflicted, to recover the stuff. Although the operation seems like a drug bust, the stuff is actually some kind of text. Death Sentences, a work of science fiction that shares its conceit with the major motion picture The Ring, tells the story of a mysterious surrealist poem penned in the 1940s, which, through low-tech circulation across time, kills its readers, including Arshile Gorky and Antonin Artaud, before sparking a wave of suicides after its publication in 1980s Japan. Mixing elements of Japanese hard-boiled detective story, horror, and science fiction, the novel ranges across time and space from left bank of Paris to the planet Mars. I'm excited. 1, because The Ring, Ringu, was A+, terrifying. I watched it on YouTube before they started regulating things. It scared the shit out of me. The Ring US version is fine too. It's still scary. Not as scary, but still scary. They try to explain too much. But either way, The Ring was fun. I really like the idea of this mysterious element. It also gives me vibes of, what is that movie? It's with the mirror. Oculus. You know, hey, you own this and it's going to make your life hell. So, if that doesn't sound interesting to you, that's fine. That's fine. Next one on the list is Earthlings by Sayaka Murata, and let me bring it up. And this one is translated by Jenny Tapley Takemori. And this one is about, as a child, Natsuki doesn't fit into her family. Her parents favor her sister, and her best friend is a plush toy hedgehog named Peeps, who has explained to her that he is from the planet Popinpobia, on a special quest to help her save the Earth. Each summer, Natsuki counts down the days until her family drives into the mountains of Nagano to visit her grandparents in their wooden house in the forest, a place that couldn't be more different from her gray commuter town. One summer, her cousin Yu confides to Natsuki that he is an extraterrestrial and that every night he searches the sky for the spaceship that might take him back to his home planet. Natsuki wonders if she might be an alien too. Back in her city home, Natsuki is scolded or ignored and even preyed upon by a young teacher at her cram school. As she grows up in a hostile, violent world, she consoles herself with memories of her time with Yu and discovers a surprisingly potent inner power. Natsuki seems forced to fit into a society she deems a baby factory, but even as a married woman, she wonders if there is more to this world than the mundane reality everyone else seems to accept. The answers are out there, and Natsuki has the power to find them. Dreamlike, sometimes shocking, and always strange and wonderful, Earthlings ask what it means to be happy in a stifling world. I mean, that feels like enough of a summary to me. Also, I really liked The Convenience Store Woman because, again, it has that kind of normal life, but with a twist that I seem to like, so I'm really hoping that I also enjoy this one. I actually started it on audiobook a while ago, but it was in the middle of a reading slump, so I had to put it down. I'll be picking it back up. I have it on hold from my library. But yeah, it seems interesting, though, going into it, just based on the summary. I do see that it probably does have some pretty big trigger warnings, so I would encourage you to look those up ahead of time. I can't tell you what they are because probably child abuse based on this. So I'd say just be careful going into it. Go into it with as much pre-warning as you can, but either way, it seems very interesting to me. Next is one that I actually I'm very excited to read. Actually, I'm trying to read it this month because it looks so good. So good. It is called Out. It is by Natsuo Kirino, and it has been translated by Steven Snyder. And here we go. Let me tell you all about it. Natsuo Kirino's novel tells a story of random violence in the staid Tokyo suburbs as a young mother who works a night shift making box lunches brutally strangles her deadbeat husband and then seeks the help of her co-workers to dispose of the body and cover up her crime. The ringleader of this cover-up, Masako Katori, emerges as the emotional heart of Out and as one of the shrewdest, most clear-eyed creations in recent fiction. Masako's own search for a way out of the straitjacket of dead-end life leads her to take drastic action. The complex yet riveting narrative seamlessly combines a convincing glimpse into the grimy world of Japan's Yakuza with a brilliant portrayal of the psychology of a violent crime and the ensuing game of cat and mouse between the seasoned detectives and a group of determined yet but inexperienced criminals. Kirino has mastered a Thelma and Louise kind of graveyard humor and illuminates her stunning evocation of the pressures and prejudices that drive women to extreme deeds and the friendship that bolsters them in the aftermath. Listen. Again, I think I'm just going to be excited about every single one of this list because, of course, I am. But listen, does that not grip you? Does that grip you? Grips you. Anyway, it seems interesting. Again, trigger warnings, probably. I mean, it is a murder story, so just saying. But I'm excited. I think it's going to be pretty fun. I think it's going to be pretty great. And if you do read it, or if you have read it, let me know how you liked it. And we're going to the next page. You can't see that. I don't know why I turned it around. The next page is another short story collection. This one is called Revenge, 11 Dark Tales, and it is by Yoko Ogawa, and it has also been translated by Steven Snyder. It says, sinister forces collide and unite a host of desperate characters in this eerie cycle of interwoven tales from Yoko Ogawa, the critically acclaimed author of The Housekeeper and The Professor. An aspiring writer moves into a new apartment and discovers that her landlady has murdered her husband. Years later, the writer's stepson reflects upon his stepmother and the strange stories she used to tell him. Meanwhile, a surgeon's lover who vows to kill him if he does not leave his wife. Before she can follow through on her crime of passion, though, the surgeon will cross paths with another remarkable woman, a cabaret singer whose heart beats delicately outside of her body. But when the surgeon promises to repair her condition, he sparks the jealousy of another man who would like to preserve the heart in a custom-tailored bag. Murderers and mourners, mothers and children, lovers and innocent bystanders. Their fates converge in a darkly beautiful web that they are each powerless to escape. Macabre, fiendishly clever, and with a touch of supernatural, Yoko Ogawa's Revenge creates a haunting tapestry of death and the afterlife of the living. Again, with the notifications, do I ever turn these on? All I'm saying is it not? Does it not grip you? Does it not leave you with questions? Does it not make you want to know? If not, okay, I'm confused, but okay. But if yes, you should read it. And on to the next one. These next few are all from Yoko Ogawa because she just seems to have these amazing plots that draw me in, and I just want to read her work. So the next one is The Memory Police, also by Yoko Ogawa and also translated by Stephen Snyder. And here we go. A haunting Orwellian novel about the terrors of state surveillance from the acclaimed author of The Housekeeper and the Professor. On an unnamed island off an unnamed coast, objects are disappearing. First hats, then ribbons, birds, roses, until things become much, much more serious. Most of the island's inhabitants are oblivious to these changes, while those few imbued with the power to recall the lost objects live in fear of the draconian memory police, who are committed to ensuring that what has disappeared remains forgotten. When a young woman who is struggling to maintain her career as a novelist discovers that her editor is in danger from the memory police, she concocts a plan to hide him beneath her floorboards. As fear and loss close in around them, they cling to her writing as the last way of preserving the past, a surreal, provocative fable about the power of memory and the trauma of loss. So, this gives me, I'm usually not one to deal in dystopian just because because I don't like big plots. I don't like plots where the entire point is to overthrow the government. It's exhausting. They're not my cup of tea. I don't usually do it, but this sounds interesting. They're taking memories, taking those items out. Some people can remember. He's in her floorboards. She's a novelist. I know I just basically said random words, but, it caught my eye. It made me want to know more. Next on the list is The Housekeeper and the Professor, which I am currently reading. I'm currently in the middle of. And you know what? I'll just tell you. It's also by Yoko Ogawa and translated by Stephen Snyder, and it follows a young housekeeper who is a single mother, as she takes care of this professor who, when he was in his early years, so he's in his 80s now, so this happened when he was 30-ish, 30, 40, but when he was pretty young, at the height of his prime, in his prime of his life, he had an accident, and so now he can only remember his life 80 minutes at a time. After 80 minutes, he resets to his age at the time of the accident. So everything, every day is all new to him. The technology, people around him, and so she comes into his home to be his caretaker, and you watch as her relationship with him develops, despite the fact that it has to develop anew each day. She introduces herself to him each day. She finds out something new about him each day, but their relationship develops into a really friendly, really loving, really family-oriented relationship, and eventually her son starts coming with her as well, and you just see how that develops, and so far, it's really cute, and it's so heartwarming, and I just love these stories that feel like a hug. Okay, I love quiet, calm, not too much going on stories that just feel like a hug, like a cozy day with hot cocoa. There's some parts where you the back of your throat might get a little tight and there's nothing going on. Again, there's nothing happening, but it's so good. Sorry, I'm on my bullshit again. I love it. It's great. The next one is one I'm also excited about that also seems like it's going to be a warm of hot cocoa in a mug in a book format, is Strange Weather in Tokyo. And this is written by Hiromi Kawakami, and it has been translated by Allison Markin Powell. Tsukiko, 38, Let's try that again. Tsukiko, 38, works in an office and lives alone. One night, she happens to meet one of her former high school teachers, Sensei, in a local bar. Tsukiko only ever calls him Sensei. He is 30 years her senior, retired, and presumably a widower. The relationship, traced by Kawakami's gentle hints at the changing season, develops from a perfunctory acknowledgement of each other as they eat and drink alone at the bar to an enjoyable sense of companionship and finally into a deeply sentimental love affair. As Tsukiko and Sensei grow to know and love one another, passing comes across through the seasons and the food and beverages they consume together. From warm sake to chilled beer, from buds on trees to the blooming of cherry blossoms, the reader is enveloped in a keen sense of pathos and both characters' keen loneliness. Again, warm hug in a book maybe, because it seems sweet. It seems awesome. I live for this shit, alright? I live for it. I'm so excited to read this book. I'm pathetic, but I'm so ready. I just thinking about, listen, I love happiness. I love that slow, nothing's going on, but everyone's alright, alright? Alright. Next one is another anthology that just looks so good. Is the Lonesome Bodybuilder by Yukiko Motoya and translated by Asa Yoneda. And a housewife takes up bodybuilding and sees radical changes to her physique, which her workaholic husband fails to notice. A boy waits at a bus stop, mocking businessmen struggling to keep their umbrellas open in a typhoon, until an old man shows him that they hold the secret to flying. A woman working in a clothing boutique waits endlessly on a customer who won't come out of the fitting room and who may or may not be a human. A newlywed notices her husband's features are beginning to slide around his face to match her own. In these 11 stories, the individuals who lift the curtains of their orderly homes and workplaces are confronted with the bizarre, the grotesque, the fantastic, the alien, and through it find a way to liberation. Thank you. That was very hard for me to get to. If you notice a lot of jump cuts, that's because I stuttered so often that I fucked up that reading the first time. And I just, that looks fun. I want to like anthologies. I want to like anthologies. But I'm interested in it because those anthologies those stories just seem cool. Also, women bodybuilders, hot. Let me know more about this. Why doesn't her husband notice? Because he should. I'll notice for her. Whatever. Anyway, moving on. The next one, this one is a Chinese work. Specifically, it is a Chinese historical fiction that was recommended to me by one of my peeps over on Twitter. I will link them below. And I wasn't quite sure I wanted to read this because the way she pitched it to me is that it is a historical romance. And two things I don't typically read are historical fiction. I'm sorry, I'm looking down while I look for the synopsis. Two things I don't regularly read are historical fiction and romance. And I was like, and specifically when I asked for recommendations, I was like, hey, maybe don't give those to me because I'm really not looking to yuck anyone's yum this early in the year. I really don't want to read someone's favorite book that happens to be historical fiction and then I hate it. And then I'm like, I don't want to ruin or upset anyone this early in the year, especially because I'm like, I already know. I'm still going to try it out because I feel like there's, like I said previously, I think there's something in every genre for someone. So I'm branching out this year and reading more romance, but the ones that catch my eye. Anyway, so this one is called Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation, and it is written by Maoxian Tiangshu. I know that the pronunciation of some Chinese words rely heavily on tonality. I also know I've listened to this be pronounced several times. I also know that I probably just butchered that. But, there's no but, that's all. but it is written by Mo Xiang Tongshi. And I don't know the translator. This is a fan translate. As far as I know, it's a fan translation, so there's no real name on it. I'm excited about it, but there is no official English language translation of it. And as the Grand Master who founded demonic cultivation, Wei Wuxian roamed the world in his wanton ways, hated by millions for the chaos he created. In the end, he was backstabbed by his dear Shidi and killed by powerful clans that combined to overpower him. He incarnates into the body of a lunatic who was abandoned by his clan, and is later unwillingly taken away by a famous cultivator among the sects, Lan Wangji, his arch enemy. This marks the start of a thrilling yet hilarious journey of attacking monsters, solving mysteries, and raising children. From mutual flirtation along the way, Wei Wuxian slowly realizes that Lan Wangji, a surprisingly haughty and indifferent poker face, holds more feelings for Wei Wuxian than he is letting on. Again, pronunciation, I apologize, but doesn't that sound good? I love adventures, and I love like Monster of the Week adventures. Again, I don't like huge, overarching evil entities, but give me a Monster of the Week. Give me found families. I'm into it. Next one on the list is, I've already told you about this once, and I'll tell you about it again. It is called Broken Stars. It is the second anthology translated by Ken Liu. There are multiple authors in it. I encourage you to pick it up. It is a series of translated Chinese fiction, Chinese science fiction specifically. So read it. Read it. I'm not gonna lie, I've never read the synopsis for it. I just knew that I liked the first one, which was Invisible Planets. So I was like, oh, well, I might as well read Broken Stars because I enjoyed Invisible Planets. But let me tell you all about Broken Stars. Broken Stars, edited, blah, blah, blah. Wow. So the Goodreads synopsis doesn't tell you anything either. So, like, just pick up the book. Those were both Chinese, by the way. The next one is one that I've actually been interested in ever since I found it. My hold on it should be coming out of the library within the next 2 weeks. Hopefully I will be done with one of the 7 books I'm reading so I can fit it on my plate. I told myself I wasn't going to read more than 5 books at a time. I'm at 7 now, but I'm trying not to go over that. So, this is called Frankenstein, huh? Have I told you how bad I am at speaking aloud? This is Frankenstein in Baghdad, and it is written by Ahmed Sadwi, and it is translated by Jonathan Wright. From the rubble-strewn streets of U.S.-occupied Baghdad, Hadi, a scavenger and oddball fixture at a local cafe, collects human body parts and stitches them together to create a corpse. His goal, he claims, is for the government to recognize the parts as people and to give them proper burial. But when the corpse goes missing, a wave of eerie murder sweeps the city and reports stream in of a horrendous-looking criminal who, though shot, cannot be killed. Hadi soon realizes he's created a monster, one that needs human flesh to survive. First from the guilty, and then from anyone in its path. Now, this book looks like, one, it's going to hurt me because people in U.S. occupied countries suffer from the actions of the U.S. government and military. It's going to hurt, but that hurt is not nearly as much as those who have lived through the trauma, so I'm going to get over that. But not only is it going to hurt me in the sense that I am fully aware of how horrible this government is, but also it is going to be intriguing because, one, you're following someone who is trying to prove to their own government that these people in body who have lost these parts deserve the rights and respect that other bodies receive, but also the guilt that comes from possibly, I assume there's going to be some guilt for the main character when he has to when he realizes that his creation is harming not only the guilty, but it is also harming innocence, his community, which I mean, I would feel horrible if I harmed people in my community through my actions. Not only that, but following the people who live in that space who already have to suffer the trauma and the fear of living in an occupied area. But now you've got a criminal that seemingly cannot be stopped on your own level, someone who is harming people on a more personal level. So I think it's going to be I think it's going to be very intriguing. I think it's going to be very hard hitting, and I'm excited to get into it. Am I prepared? But I'm ready and willing to open my ears, my brain. I say ears. I don't read out loud. I'm ready to jump in. Let's see. Oh, by the way, that book is from an Iraqi author. I'm sure you assumed, but I always feel it's good to inform. The next one is from a Kurdish author from Kurdistan, and it is I Stared at the Night of the City by Bakhtiar Ali, and it was translated by Karim. His name has so many letters that look the same in my brain. Abdul Rahman. This one was recommended to me by Gia over on Twitter. She has a wonderful she has a website, a wonderful book blog, and she gave me her book blog. It is full of, she has a little map that shows you different books from different areas of the Middle East, and it was so amazingly helpful, and I appreciate it so much. It will be in the description below. You should go check it out and find some great books from there. And anyway, back to what I was saying. Iraqi Kurdistan at the turn of the 21st century is a territory ruled by strongman revolutionaries, fixers, bureaucrats, and the barons who control everything from livestock and land to Kurdish cultural life. Defying the absolute power wielded by the barons, a band of friends led by an enigmatic poet embark on an odyssey to find the bodies of two lovers killed unjustly by the authorities. The barons respond by attempting to crush these would-be avengers, but their real war is waged against the imagination itself, a prized, elusive commodity to which intellectuals, merchants, political elites, and humble workers all seek access in one way or another. I Starred the Night of the City is a tale. I stared. Oh, I starred. I've been saying I starred this entire time. Have I told you that sometimes I have a hard time with words, especially reading out loud? I Stared at the Night of the City is a tale of extraordinary people traveling great distances in their minds or with their feet. It is a lyrical interpretation of contemporary Kurdistan, so much in the news, but so little understood. Told by several unreliable narrators in a kaleidoscope of fragments that all eventually cohere, the novel immerses readers in the fantastic just long enough before wrenching them back to the hard, cold, real life. Wow. I can't speak out loud very well. But that one also looks like it's going to be hard-hitting. It also looks like it's probably going to make me cry a little bit. Anytime people are actively and ruthlessly being oppressed, I am saddened. So the next one on my list is one that I found in one of my many Google searches for books. Is a German book called The Carpet Makers. It is written by Andreas Eschbach, and it has been translated by Doral Jensen and Orson Scott Card. And since the time of prehistory, carpet makers tie intricate knots to form carpets for the court of the emperor. These carpets are made from the hairs of wives and daughters. They are so detailed and fragile that each carpet maker finishes only one single carpet in his entire lifetime. The art descends from father to son since the beginning of time itself. But one day the empire of the god emperor vanishes, and strangers begin to arrive from the stars to follow the trace of hair carpets. What the strangers discovers is beyond all belief, more than anything they could ever have imagined. it just seems interesting. It's carpets that people work their entire lives on, made from the hair of their daughters and wives. And then people, after this empire has fallen, go to find out more. I want to know what they find out. I do. This one I'm interested in, but at the same time I'm wary of, because I'm like, it has the potential to be not my cup of tea. The next one is by an Argentinian author. It is called All the Fires. It is by Julio Cortázar, and it has been translated by Suzanne Jill Levine. This is one of those books that I'm having a hard time finding a English translation of. They say it exists, but finding one, either through my library or through Amazon or any other book site, is hard. I might have to see if, I'm going to see if Barnes & Noble can get that for me, because I want to read this book. Anyway, Cortázar's stories are like small timepieces where each polished part moves relentlessly on its own particular path, exercising a crucial and perpetual influence on the mechanism as a whole. Moments jerk forward and retract, reflect and refract. An island at noon from an aeroplane at noon from an island, the living deceiving the dying and also themselves about death. Fatality by fire in an ancient Roman arena, in a modern city apartment. It is a world that is constantly shifting, upsetting our balance and our peace of mind. A world outside of time that provokes a fascination bordering on terror. Cortázar is the master of the form, and this celebrated collection houses some of his finest work. So it's a collection of stories by this one author. Story collection, short story. I don't even know if they're short. I assume they must be, because they're all in one book, but for all I know, it's a thick book, but I can't find it, so. Next on my list is another book by an Argentinian author. This one was recommended to me by Sunny Shelves on Twitter, who also has a book blog coming soon, so they say. So I will link their Twitter down below so you can keep track of when their book blog goes live. I am losing light. Wow, it is getting dark in here. One moment, please. Next on my list, like I said, is from an Argentinian author. It is called Fever Dream. It is written by Samantha Schweblin, and it is translated by Megan McDowell and Ruth Sepp, who did the afterword. Experiencing a blazing surreal sensation of fever dream, a young woman named A young woman named Amanda lies dying in a rural hospital clinic. A boy named David sits beside her. She is not his mother. He's not her child. Together they tell a haunting story of broken souls, toxin, and the power and desperation of family. Fever Dream is a nightmare come to life, a ghost story for the real world, a love story, a cautionary tale, one of the freshest new voices to come from the Spanish language, translated into English for the first time. This is another one of those that I'd say probably you want to look up trigger warnings ahead of time, because based solely on the impression I get from the synopsis, it could have some triggering subjects, right? Some triggering imagery. So take care of yourselves, guys. Look up trigger warnings before you hop into this. Okay. Next on my list is a book recommended to me by Malls by Moonlight, who is on Twitter. I will also be linking in the description down below. And it is called Girls Against God. It is by a Norwegian author, and it is by a Norwegian author. It is written by Jenny Fall and translated by Marjam Idris. And let me tell you about it. This is also a short story collection. I seem to be wanting to read a lot of translated short stories. Why not? We're living our lives on the edge. Once a time-traveling horror story and a fugue-like feminist manifesto. At once, a time-traveling horror story and a fugue-like feminist manifesto, this is a singular, genre-warping new novel from the author of the acclaimed Paradise Rot. It's 1992, and I'm gloomiest child queen. Welcome to 1990s Norway. White picket fences run in neat rows, and Christian conservatism runs deep. But as the artist considers her past, her practice, and her hatred, things start stirring themselves up around her. In a corner of Oslo, a coven of witches begins cooking up some curses. A time-traveling Edvard Munch arrives in a town to join a black metal band, closely pursued by teenage subject of his painting, Puberty, who has murder on her mind. Meanwhile, out deep in the forest, a group of schoolgirls gets very lost and things get very strange. Awful things happen in Aspic. Jenny Vall's latest novel is a radical fusion of feminist theory and experimental horror and a unique treatise on magic, gender, and art. Hi, so I know at the very beginning of this book I said it was a short story collection. It's not. It's just a story that follows many other people within the story. I think. Either way, I'm excited. Next book was also recommended by Malls by Moonlight, and that is The Taurus Butcher, which, just based on the name, I'm just thinking it sounds interesting. It is from the Netherlands. The author is from the Netherlands. The author is Dutch. So sorry, my sentence structures are bad. Author's name is Jamal. This is another one of those names where a lot of the letters look the same. I apologize. Jamal Oraichi. This is by Jamal Oraichi, and it has been translated by Scott Emblin Jarrett. It's a book with 2 stories. These 2 stories take an unconventional positions within short story archetypes. The Taurus Butcher is a grimly comic tale about a serial killer who prepares his victims for a culinary dish, while Memories in Tinfoil follows the nightmares and existential crisis of a psychology student who receives a slice of human brain as a gift from a biologist roommate. Both demonstrate a dark or horrifying underworlds in which the reader's mind might get lost. Listen, Hannibal is one of my favorite I haven't read the books. Favorite movies. I've watched all the movies. And TV characters. I will eventually read the books. Hannibal is one of the most interesting characters I have ever had the graciousness of witnessing, and talk about a problematic faith. I love him. Listen, I understand, and I would never idolize a human, in-person, real-life serial killer. Hannibal's great, and this gives me Hannibal vibes. I'm excited for it. I am scared for it because it might destroy me, as far as I don't like body horror just because it's disgusting, not because it scares me, it gives me nightmares. So I might get nauseous, but very excited. The next one, also recommended by Malls by Moonlight, is Confession of the Lioness. The author is from Mozambique. It is by Mia Couto, and the translator is David Brookshaw. A dark poetic mystery about the women of the remote village in village of Kulumani and lionesses that hunt them. Told through 2 haunting interwoven diaries, Mia Couto's Confessions of the Lioness reveals the mysterious world of Kulumani as an isolated village in Mozambique whose traditions and beliefs are threatened when ghost-like lionesses begin hunting the women who live there. Maria Mar, a woman whose sister was killed in a lioness attack, finds her life thrown into chaos when the outsider Archangel Bullseye, the marksman hired to kill the lionesses, arrives at the request of the village elders. Maria Mar's father imprisons her in her home when she where she relives painful memories of past abuse and hopes to be rescued by Archangel. Meanwhile, Archangel tracks the lionesses in the wilderness, but when he begins to suspect there is more to them than meets the eye, he starts to lose control of his hands. The hunt grows more dangerous until it's no safer inside Kulumani than outside it. As the men of Kulumani feel increasingly threatened by the outsider, the forces of modernity upon their traditional culture, and the danger of their animal predators closing in, it becomes clear the lionesses might not be real lionesses at all, but spirits conjured by the ancient witchcraft of the women themselves. Both a riveting mystery and a poignant examination of women's oppression, Confessions of the Lioness explores the confrontation between modern world and ancient traditions to produce an atmospheric, gripping novel. Need I say more? Need I say more? I don't think so. I don't think I do. I encourage you to look more into this if it catches your eye. So the next one is Baho, and it is a Burundi work, and it follows when Nyamugari, a adolescent mute, attempts to ask a young woman in rural Burundi for directions to an appropriate place to relieve himself. His gestures are mistaken as premeditation for rape. To the young woman's community, his fleeing confirms his guilt, setting off a chain reaction of pursuit, mob justice, and Nyamugari's attempts at explanation. This one is again one of those hard-hitting ones that I think are probably going to be a little bit difficult to read, but I think it's important to read the hard ones too. And it's gonna crush me probably, but I'm ready. Next one on the list is Whitefly. This is by a Moroccan author, by Abdelila Hamdouchi. Abdelila Hamdouchi. And it is translated. Oh, I forgot to say the author and translator of Baho. The author is Folen Ruggiero, and translated by Chris Schaefer. Schaefer. Whitefly is written by Abdelila Hamdouchi, and it is translated by Jonathan Smolin. The traffickers, the drug dealers, the smugglers, they know what it takes to get a gun into Morocco. So does Detective Lafrite. When a fourth corpse in 3 days washes up on Tangier with a bullet in the chest, Lafrite knows this isn't just another illegal who didn't make it to the Spanish coast. As his team hunts for the murder weapon, Lafrite follows a hunch and reveals the killer at the heart of an international conspiracy. A fast-paced crime thriller from the Arab West. I don't typically read crime thrillers because they don't interest me, but I'm going outside of my comfort zone this year, so I'm hoping that I will like it. Oh, that was book 22. That is the very last book on my list. I hope some of these caught your eye. Like I said, I do apologize for any mispronunciations. I do have a hard time speaking aloud in general. But I hope some of these caught your eye. Like I said, I will go ahead and link the different people who have given me recommendations, as well as their book blogs or YouTube channels if they have them. I encourage you to follow them on Twitter, if you have them, follow them on all their social media. I will also be including my own social media. You can follow me on Twitter. I mostly talk about nothing, and if I am talking about something, it's either my own boring life, or I am spreading information from others from around the world, because I think it's important that not only am I reading diversely, but I am interacting with people diversely, because ethnocentrism isn't cute. If you want to see some of my less rambly stuff, you can find me on Instagram. I sometimes post. You will find my stories more often than not. I hope you had a good time. I hope some of these books caught your eye, and I hope to see you in the next video.